Well, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for all attendees who have joined so far. I'm sure we'll have more coming in the next few minutes, but as we do, I'd just like to introduce today's webinar and our presenters. It looks to be quite the affair today, talking about the 3 steps that Hairhouse Warehouse is taking to achieve its retail future. And the 3 steps is a bit of a misleading information there. They're actually doing their upgrades in 2 phases. However, the first step, if you like, was in the choosing of the platform that they're using. And that's all going to be explained today by our 2 presenters, Rob Hooton, who is the e-commerce vertical market expert APAC at NetSuite, and Michael O'Connell, who's the Chief Financial Officer of Hairhouse Warehouse, and very knowledgeable in terms of the strategy that that retailer is taking to achieve what they've achieved so far and to push further into the future. Now, before we get on with it, there's a couple of housekeeping matters that I'd like to take care of. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded. So if you happen to miss anything, if there's any glitching or anything that goes on, we do have that recorded and we will be sending that out to everyone who attends today. So not to fear there. I'd also encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the course of the webinar. Now, you can do that through the questions interface of the GoToWebinar control panel. Those questions will come through to me, and if we have time, I'll be feeding them to our presenters at the end, the last 15 minutes of this presentation, in fact. Of course, there may well be a lot of questions. It is a very complex business and a complex set of concepts that we're dealing with today. There's probably not going to be a chance to cover every single detail. However, even if your question doesn't get answered, we will endeavor to follow up after the fact. On to technical matters. If you are experiencing any audio difficulties whatsoever, it could be due to your internet connection. I'd recommend, if you have the opportunity, to plug in via a hardline internet connection rather than Wi-Fi. However, if ultimately at the end of the day something does happen, as I said, we are recording and you will gain access later on. So without any more ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Rob Hooton, who is introducing the beginning of this webinar. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to give a very quick overview of NetSuite, and then we're going to get on to the interesting bit, which is Michael talking, not me. So background of NetSuite, we were founded in 1998 by Larry Ellison as a sort of a spin-off of an Oracle employee. We're publicly traded in the New York Stock Exchange, nearly 2,500 employees to date. We've been in Australia for over 8 years, and now we're worldwide, used by over 20,000 organizations. I think a very interesting point to note in terms of our customers, I won't go through all these customers, but GoPro, I would like to highlight, has just been in the news very recently, has just actually gone public. But that company started off with NetSuite some years ago with just a handful of employees and is now over $1 billion company listed on the stock exchange as of a couple of days ago. So next slide, please. So in terms of our e-commerce solution, and then I'll hand it over to Michael, we like to just talk about our platform. Is we're a leader for cloud-based e-commerce. Worldwide, we actually service over 3,000 e-commerce deployments on our platform, which equates to 6 million orders a month and 150 million page hits per month, managing over 70 million products. So that's the sort of brief intro of NetSuite, and I will hand over to Michael, who will talk you through his business and Hairhouse Warehouse.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. Just by way of introduction, a little bit of background into Hairhouse Warehouse. The business was established back in 1992 by brothers Joseph and Tony Latouf. Just very briefly, Joseph had a successful background as a hairdresser, and his elder brother Tony was involved in the retail industry, in the liquor industry. And the two of them, over a family chat one night, decided that there was a gap in the hair and beauty market, whereby in the professional hair care category, there was no single provider or single retailer servicing the market's professional hair care needs. Generally, for professional hair care, you needed to go to your individual salon, and generally they only ranged one or two products. So the business was formed out of that idea, with the initial store opening out at Knox Shopping Centre here in Melbourne in 1992. And it was pretty clear from the get-go that they tapped into a segment of the market that, as I say, was previously untapped. The business has grown very steadily over the past 21, 22 years. Today, the business is regarded unquestionably as Australia's #1 hair and beauty services retailer. For those that aren't familiar with the brand, we range a full range, literally thousands of SKUs of professional hair care from some of the biggest suppliers in the world. As well as that, all of our stores contain a hair salon. So there's the unique offering of retail services offering as well. We actually employ in excess of 700 qualified hairstylists, making us the biggest or the largest employer of hairstylists nationally. And we've got a total team throughout our store network of in excess of 1,500 team members. Business has been very successful, as I've said. It's won multiple awards. Probably two of the major awards that we'll sing our praises on. In 2011, the Franchise Council of Australia, who are the overarching franchise body in the country, named Hairhouse Warehouse as the Franchisor of the Year, and in that same year, ANZ voted Hairhouse Warehouse as the most successful private business of that year. So they were great fillip for the organisation. I guess when we started this process, which really, from our perspective, has been in the making for nigh on 2 years, the legacy of the business really was that the public face of the business grew substantially quicker than what the back-end infrastructure did. And what customers were seeing in store in terms of a very slick and professional retail and services offering was not matched by the infrastructure that underpinned it. So we really had a number of legacy systems that were non-integrated. We were not capturing sufficient data about our customers, obviously, particularly the salon side of our business. Salon services are considered a personal service, and we were not capturing the level of customer data that we needed to capture to be able to fully market and adapt to consumer trends. We had no scheduling capability within our stores, so again, with salon a key plank of our business, we were not in a position whereby we had adequate salon scheduling capability. In fact, the bulk of our stores ran off manual appointment books. In terms of being able to generate any form of management information or management reporting, we were generally having to export information out of multiple environments, massage them in Excel or in some other forum, and then have them presented in a way to our executive management team or to our board that enabled us to make strategic decisions about the business. And we really existed on what was a relatively unstable infrastructure, and it was understood very early that if the business was to grow, and certainly we had visions of the business growing beyond Australian shores into other territories, that we really needed to look at our overall platform and structure and get to a point where it was going to sustain where we needed to head moving forward. So what we did was, firstly, up until that point, most of the business's ICT or IT requirements had been handled by third-party providers. So we had no internal IT expertise, and one of the first moves we made as a business was to make that decision between whether or not we have third-party project management of this overview of our business systems infrastructure, or whether or not we actually take it on board ourselves. And we chose to have a team that was employed by us and invested in where we were heading strategically. So we went out and recruited a very well-regarded head of ICT who came out of the retail sector here in Australia. And in his first 6 months in the business, we set about defining in great detail all of the business's requirements, not only current but into the future, and came up with a very detailed request for proposal document that ultimately was distributed to approximately 35 global vendors or application providers. In reality, we had approximately 12 that, in responding, were, in our view, capable of adequately fulfilling the brief we had. The business is very unique. It's not a typical retail business. It has a number of complexities to a standard retail offering. I mentioned salon previously, which provides its own unique set of circumstances. One of our key business segments as part of our beauty services division is a body piercing business. We have an online retail business. We had established click and collect functionality within our business. And we also exist on what is largely a franchise-based model. So it wasn't only about looking at an application that was able to fulfill Hairhouse Warehouse's requirements at the corporate level, but the vast majority of our 140 stores are actually franchise owned and operated, and we had to ensure that the system that we chose was capable of enabling our franchisees to operate and manage those individual businesses in the way that they saw appropriate, but also provide them with the opportunity to be able to scale their own individual businesses for future growth as well. So we ended up culling the 12 respondents down to a short list of 5, and thus began a pretty detailed demonstration process of those 5 applications to determine which of those we thought best serviced our needs. And that involved quite a large project team from our business. So we had representation from our franchise network. We had key members, obviously, of our executive team. We had representation from some of our supplier groups. And we also had a number of our team members involved in sitting in what were ostensibly 2 days each of the selected shortlisted vendors actually overviewing their application. After that process, we had a fairly detailed weighting system of requirements that we needed fulfilled, and our project team, who had formed part of that process, went through and basically weighted all of the respondents, and it was pretty clear to us relatively early in the process that NetSuite was certainly best placed to meet all of our requirements. We did go through, the assessment of a couple of the businesses which sought to or responded to the RFP were on-premise based providers, and there were 2 or 3 that were on the short list that were cloud or SaaS-based providers. Going in to the process, I have to say we didn't necessarily have a specific preference in relation to cloud-based or on-premise solution. As we started to work through the process and we started to assess, the various mobility options that were available to us out of the cloud-based system, and given our unique franchise structure with stores spread far and wide around the country, and obviously due to globalisation, it was pretty clear to us that cloud-based was the way to go. So we ultimately selected NetSuite as our provider, and really that was just the beginning of, I guess, the next phase of the process, whereby we had to actually go through a detailed definition of all of our business requirements. So from basically August last year, so August 2013, the Hairhouse Warehouse project teams, in conjunction with the NetSuite project teams, have really gone through every aspect of our business and defined our requirements for the system, not only in terms of what we require currently, but what we will require in the future. And there are numerous touch points, as I said. You know, we've got a retail business on one hand, we've got a substantial salon business within all of our stores. We now have an online retail presence. We run a warehouse environment from which we service not only B2C customers in terms of our online retail capability, but we also offer B2B inventory availability to our franchise network. We've now moved down the path of click and collect as well, and really, had we have not made the decision that we have in relation to completely overhauling our systems infrastructure with NetSuite, a lot of this would not have been possible. I mean, from a click and collect perspective, our incumbent systems provided no link between, they were completely not integrated, they provided no link between our online retail offering, for argument's sake, which encompassed our click and collect functionality, and the individual stock levels that existed within each store. So we were never truly sure when somebody got online and purchased something click and collect as to whether, when they arrived in the store, the stock would actually be available and on hand for them to be able to, for the store to be able to fulfil that order. So, you know, there was a number of key issues that we needed to solve from an integration standpoint in order to be able to fulfil the business's strategy in terms of growth. And I have to say, as a franchise model, one of the significant challenges we also had, which factored greatly into the decision, was that you know, a key plank of our business is opening new stores, is enticing new franchisees and opening new stores, not only here, but as we push towards a presence in other territories. And one of the great challenges we had through a non-integrated system was that it was actually very difficult for us to benchmark where individual stores or groups of stores or the network stood overall. So in order to be able to market the opportunity to new franchisees as a means of growth, we were always dealing with very labour-intensive manual processes to be able to benchmark the business. So, as I say, we spent considerable time looking at a number of suitable alternatives, and ultimately we decided that NetSuite was certainly best placed to fulfil our needs. So we have gone through, as I said, over the last number of months, we've gone through a very detailed business requirements definition, and we've worked closely with NetSuite in customising the solution to our specific needs, and we're very comfortable, as I sit here today, that we are now in a position of rolling out a solution to our business that is able to meet all of our requirements in a fully integrated way, and we have no requirement for third-party integration at all. We're able to have complete visibility not only at the corporate level but at the store-by-store level into what is taking place within our business. Through the customised CRM, which underpins our loyalty program, we are now at a point, or will soon be at a point, when the environment is fully rolled out to our network, where we are able to obviously extract and maintain significant amounts of data around our customers and their purchasing habits, which historically has not been available to us, as I said. We are now developing a history of interaction with customers that obviously enables us to reach a point of, well, effectively being able to target market, to segment market, and to develop that true personal relationship that not only needs to exist in our salon and services environment, but in our retail environments generally. I guess from where we are as we sit here today is that when the decision was made to go with NetSuite, the first thing we did was accelerate the implementation of the NetSuite financial application. So within 8 weeks of formalising our decision with NetSuite, we went through, again, a detailed business requirements process in terms of our financial needs, and we were able to customise that system and get it up and running within our business within 8 to 12 weeks. That in itself has led to significant enhancement for our business. Previously, we did have a number of very manual, labour-intensive processes, and something as simple as a franchise system, we obviously, our fundamental income stream is fees paid by our store network, franchise fees paid by our store network as a percentage of their weekly sales. The process for us in our previous systems environment to be able to calculate, invoice and effectively direct debit those weekly fee, or that weekly fee mechanism, one of my team would generally spend approximately 3 days every week working through the 140 stores, extracting sales data, raising invoices, etc., etc. Because of the automation of that process within NetSuite, we would now complete that process in its entirety in less than half a day. It'll be further enhanced in the coming months as we get the full sales data integration from the NetSuite system. We have just gone through a pilot test, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around with the slides a bit. I'm focused on talking and not as focused as I should be on moving with the slides, so I apologise for that. We have just, in June, completed the initial in-store pilot testing of the full ERP solution to our business. There were, as you would expect, there were some minor customisations that need to be made as a result of that initial pilot testing. That is occurring at the moment, and we expect to go into final pilot testing in 2 stores later on in July. We have our national rollout, so that's our rollout to the remainder of our store network. So we run a number of company store operations, which will be the first stores rolled out throughout July and August. And then we go to our national rollout to all of our franchise stores in September this year. And yeah, look, the key, I guess in terms of a couple of the key ingredients that really we think we're going to be able to, or we're sure we're going to be able to tap into once we're fully rolled out. As it stands at the moment, we have no ability to direct market our customer base. So in terms of data we're capturing about customers that are coming into our store environments, whether it be a retail customer or a salon customer, we really have had no capability to capture that data in an integrated way that could then be used for marketing or BI purposes. We're now getting to obviously with the solution that's being developed with NetSuite, because we have got an integrated salon scheduling capability, which was proposed as part of the NetSuite solution. So when NetSuite proposed their business solution to Hairhouse Warehouse, they recommended a very well-known salon scheduling provider in North America called Appointments Plus, and the Appointments Plus program has been integrated into our ultimate NetSuite solution, and now we have a very integrated capability from a salon perspective in terms of being able to understand historically when people visited, how often they visited, what they have done when they visit, which of our stylists actually services them, and what retail product they purchased as an adjunct to that in-store visit. And probably one of the best, just by way of example, one of the best indications I can give of the sort of benefit that we're seeing realised out of the integrated solution is that we had a store in far north Queensland, Rockhampton actually, for those of you that are local, and in the last 12 months there'd been a number of weather issues in far north Queensland, and in fact Rockhampton was hit by a tropical cyclone and parts of the city were flooded, and on very short notice the shopping centre in which our store exists was forced to close, and really we only found out at about 5 or 6 a.m. on that morning that due to flooding the store would not be able to open. Now this particular store is running the Appointments Plus salon scheduling tool as part of the integrated NetSuite solution, and this is no better example of the SaaS-based functionality versus the on-premise functionality. Our franchisee was able to, from home, log in on his iPad to the NetSuite environment, and in particular into Appointments Plus. He was able to make contact with every salon customer who was booked into the salon in that day, alert them to what was happening, and obviously reschedule all of their appointments for the subsequent few days. Now, had that occurred 6 months earlier, where that particular store was running off a purely on-premise POS environment, we would have had no capability to contact any of those customers, and there would have been a number of them, obviously, that would have been disenfranchised as a result of what took place. So, that's just one example of the sorts of capability that exists. Obviously, with the I guess a database of information that we build around our retail and salon customers, we ultimately do have the capability of being able to directly target segments of our market. So we've seen campaigns initiated recently whereby, for argument's sake, historically, because we're running a manual appointment process and a manual appointment book within our salons, there was really no capability of knowing when you were losing customers. Anecdotally, you might know that you used to see somebody, but you don't see them anymore, and you wonder what happened to them. But other than pouring back through a manual appointment book, you had no real way of being able to identify when was the last time you saw that customer was. We now are seeing our franchisees implement programs where they know, and for the future they'll know, that if the historical visitation of a salon customer has been, every 6 to 8 weeks, and all of a sudden we cease to see an individual for a couple of months or 3 months or whatever it is, we are able to produce a targeted offer to those individuals along the lines of, we know we haven't seen you for a while. If you make an appointment with the store in the next 7 days for a salon service, you'll get a 50% discount on whatever service you choose to undertake. So it's just a means of being able to really actively communicate with our customer base and really build that personal service such that we're able to establish really long-standing relationships with them. In terms of our outlook, and I'm happy to the extent that there's been questions as we've gone along, because I'm conscious that there's really a lot of detail here, and I'm probably only tipping the iceberg in terms of some of the more, targeted issues we could discuss. But to the extent that there's been questions along the way, I'm obviously happy to touch on those in more detail at the end. In terms of the outlook for us, look, we, I say it in the slide here, we don't believe that there are any limits. So, we expect, based on what we're seeing out of the functionality of NetSuite, that we are going to be able to sustain continued store growth and business profitability. We're able to tap into a level of business intelligence that we weren't able to tap into previously. And again, an example is for our individual business owners, many of you may not be aware that part of the NetSuite functionality, and probably something that we didn't understand going in exactly how critical an issue this would be for us, is that obviously, as I said, we range, we've got tens of thousands of SKUs in our retail range. Inventory management, stock management, and how our individual business owners plan for potential demand has always been very challenged. It's really been based on an individual business owner's specific feel about how particular items have sold in their business during particular periods. NetSuite, as part of the full ERP offering, has demand planning capability within it that is able to look at a particular periods in time for particular SKUs, or for every SKU if you want it at that level, and provide reporting for given periods of what the sales of particular SKUs were for given periods in given stores. And we are finding that our franchisees, albeit they're only seeing it in its infancy at the moment, they are really wrapped by the ability for them to be able to run reporting at the touch of a button, which is able to tell them between, for argument's sake, the 1st of October and 31st of December last year, this is how much of each particular SKU you sold, and actually come up with a demand planning schedule that actually guides their ordering for that period, or for any period really, based on historical trends. So it's really giving them a level of intelligence around their business that they haven't experienced previously. And essentially, what we're seeking to do is to actually franchise the business system, because there is really no aspect of their business management that they need to look outside NetSuite for. We've now obviously got an integrated POS solution. We've got integrated salon scheduling capability. There's full inventory management and procurement functionality. And there's also a very advanced financial application suite. And historically, most of our business owners, most of our franchisees have handled their accounting and financial needs in separate environments. You know, as you'd expect, most small business owners might run MyOb or QuickBooks or Xero or you know, the various options that are in the marketplace. Moving forward, they're all very excited by the fact that really they're able to maintain their entire business suite from go to woe within the NetSuite environment. You know, look, it's critical for us. As a business, we're in pretty advanced discussions with a number of parties in different territories of the world around taking the Hairhouse Warehouse brand global. The scalability of NetSuite as a platform was huge. The mobility of NetSuite as a platform was huge. Obviously, whilst we're not using it just at the moment because we don't have stores in other regions, the One World capability, which we looked at in detail as part of the overall offering, certainly has us in a position where we know that once we move into other territories, we've got a fairly simple and fairly scalable business systems offering that will be able to be transported into any region. You know, NetSuite are obviously spending, and it was a key decision-making plank for us, is that our decisions were not only about today. So we knew that we were operating on outdated architecture and outdated functionality. It was not so much about finding a solution that met our needs right now, but in addition to that, finding a solution that was clearly going to meet our needs into the future and had an appropriate investment in future development, I guess, research and development of the application, such that we knew we were always going to be on pace with consumer trends. And in fact, in our industry, we not only seek to be on pace with consumer trends, you know, our preference is to actually be a key player in driving those consumer trends. So, you know, we're very comfortable that you know, the level of future enhancement that's taking place within this application is going to service us. You don't make this sort of investment, and it is a significant investment for our business, the biggest single infrastructure investment the business has ever undertaken, and you don't make that decision off a 2, 3, 4 year time horizon. We have not sought, frankly, we could have rolled out the system, and I know other customers have, we could have rolled out the system in a relatively quick time frame. We've chosen to take a more elongated approach to the rollout of the system to ensure that we have the system fully customised to meet our needs, as I say, not only now, but into the future. So I've said here at the end of my Outlook slide that as far as we're concerned, the story is really just beginning, and we truly believe that. You know, we think that there are great opportunities to come across our business, and I don't think there's any doubt in our mind that we certainly wouldn't have been able to crystallise a number of them had we have not embarked on this process of completely overhauling our systems environment. I don't really have anything else that I specifically want to cover, but I'll pass back to the others, and I'm certainly happy to take any questions or answer any questions there may be.
Thank you, Michael. That was very good. I appreciate that. If you could just click the slide for the next slide, please. Yeah, so I'm going to very quickly interject just by summarising the solution that Hairhouse Warehouse took. If you just click the next slide, the problem we solved was this, you know, this fragmented system, and what we're now delivering is a single website solution for 140 locations initially with click and collect. That could go globally, as Michael just pointed out. Hundreds of hairdresser calendars. I think he said there was 700 qualified hairstylists overall. and tying all of that to a loyalty program, and hopefully millions of happy customers as per that little picture there. And as Michael said, this is all coming back to the single source of truth that sits within NetSuite, so that on any customer record, for example, we can see which appointments that they've taken, what they bought online, what they bought in store, and all this rolling up into financials, both on the store level and also rolled up into the overall franchisor level. And then the final slide I'll show before we go into questions is that obviously that previous slide was showing the customer touch points, and this is really where we see how the solution that Michael's business got relates to the roles within the business, whether it's a customer, whether it's the CFO role, merchandise buyer, hairstylist, suppliers, e-commerce managers. Everybody has a view of the same single source of truth within the business solution that Hairhouse now have. So that was just my little recap, and I think we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, well, fantastic, Rob, and to you too, Michael. I know that you've only just come back from leave, so to whip out that presentation pretty much at the last minute, you've done a fantastic job there. I think I'm sure everyone feels the same. Now, as I said at the very start, it's a very complex business model that you're running. There's plenty of detail that we won't get to cover, but if people want to keep sending questions through, then we will collate those and make sure that NetSuite are able to field those after the event. In line with that, we have got a few questions on board. The first of which probably best directed to you, Michael. It's about some of the other vendors that you were originally considering that satisfied the RFP. Can you give us some insight into what kind of companies that you were looking at, and specifically which were the 5 that were shortlisted other than NetSuite?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the 5 shortlisted were our incumbent provider, which is really a locally based, essentially point of sale systems provider, AMC, or Australian Microcomputer Systems as they're known. The other 4 obviously were NetSuite, Epicor, we looked at in great detail, SAP Business by Design, we looked at in great detail, and there is also a local salon-specific, primarily point of sale, but they have partnered with another company now to become more of an end-to-end ERP called Shortcuts. So we looked at those 5 in quite a level of detail. So they all had the ability to provide detailed demonstrations of their product over 2 days, and as I say, we had a fairly large project team involved in assessing. And I will say that the RFP document we put together was extremely detailed, and not every issue within our RFP was dealt with by all of these 5 shortlisted companies. There were some gaps that some were able to fill and others were not. But overall, those 5 companies stood out as the ones in terms of our RFP that were able to meet the bulk of our requirements.
Well, fantastic. There's been another question soon after that from Neil, and Neil, I guess it kind of goes along similar lines. Michael, you might want to start off by answering from your perspective, and if there's anything you can add, Rob, feel free to come in after. Neil's asking, was there an assessment made of the long-term total cost of ownership? And what kind of timelines did you put on that? Have you already covered your costs? What are the considerations there?
No, look, obviously that was a big consideration. I mean, it's one thing to have providers that can obviously meet your functionality needs, but we're a private business, admittedly one that's grown very quickly and is now would certainly be considered, mid-sized, if not already in the large category. But that aside, you're still dealing with private money, and there was great consideration around the financial implications. And we knew that, I mean, as a franchise system predominantly, we knew that there was going to be, I guess, an upfront capital cost for us associated with implementing the system, that there was not going to be any direct payback on. So the way our model works is our franchisees, who as part of the franchise system are required to adopt the business infrastructure or the business systems infrastructure we have in place, and they pay an annual subscription for that service, which obviously happens in perpetuity. But there was certainly an element of initial, well, certainly professional services around the customisation of the application, and also around the initial licensing to facilitate that customisation, that there's no subscription being paid by our network at that point because they haven't yet had the system rolled out. It's somewhat of an intangible when you get a payback on that upfront capital investment, because how do you, how can you truly apportion what growth in business there will be, what additional custom there will be as a result of substantially improved functionality? We are certainly confident that on an ongoing basis, the ongoing costs of licensing are fully funded by the subscriptions that our network pays, and our initial capital investment to get the system up will ultimately be paid for by the increased business that the group's able to generate as a result of the substantially improved functionality that exists, which in our mind, and again, this is the part that is somewhat intangible, but we have no doubt, and our franchisees have no doubt, that the functionality we now have access to will substantially improve our customer traffic. So yeah.
That's fantastic, Rob. I'm just wondering if you have anything to add to that, specifically when you're looking at a software as a service model compared to on-premise models. Is there a different way that you would talk to your clients about their total cost of ownership?
Yeah, look, I think exactly you've hit it. You've nailed it. Software as a service is upgraded. The software is managed and upgraded in NetSuite's case twice a year. So whilst there may have been, as Michael explained, an initial cost sunk into the project to get it going and get it deployed and configured and customized initially, then ongoing maintenance and ongoing servicing and upgrading of that software is paid for by the licensing, and that's part of his overall franchising business model. So the system should keep up to date on an ongoing basis, and if we compare that to the other systems that are out there, there can often be a sort of re-platforming or upgrading cost every 3 to 5 years.
Fantastic. Well, I think the most pointed question has been asked by Stuart, and again, I'm sorry to put you on the spot again, Michael, but this one I think is for you. Is there anything so far that hasn't worked out the way that you were hoping or the way that you were expecting? Can you talk to that point at all?
Look, I guess, I mean, ours was, it's difficult in this time frame to give people a true indication of just how big a project this has been. Where you talk about 140 retail stores and really every aspect of your business being completely overhauled in terms of business systems, it's obviously been, as I said, it's been the biggest infrastructure project that this business has ever undertaken in 21 years. And I don't mean in terms of cost, I just mean in terms of resourcing, both internal and through partnership with NetSuite. Look, it's probably the only area that I would say I've at times felt challenge is probably been in the area of project management. So in terms of functionality, I have to say that by and large, all of our functional requirements have been able to be met. And where they didn't exist, and I mean, obviously in a unique business like ours, we knew that irrespective of who we chose, we were not going to be picking an application off the shelf, putting it into our business, hey presto, we've got everything that we want. So we knew that we were going to spend many months in developing the necessary customisations for the specific needs of our business, and they have all been met to our satisfaction. There's no question about that. I think the only challenge I've had at times has been around timing, where my view of, and this is, I'm not a trained technical person from an ICT perspective. My background is elsewhere. So probably my view of how long things should take to complete or customise, and the view of IT professionals about how long sometimes those things take was different at times, and we ended up in time frames that were probably a little bit longer than what I'd hoped. But again, I say that if I stand back and the 10,000 foot view, really this is about the next 15 to 20 years of this business, not about the next 1 to 3. So we've always taken the view that if it ended up being 3 or 4 or even 6 months later or longer to get to the fully customised version ready for implementation, then we're prepared to take that as a given.
Fantastic. A great answer, I think, Michael, and it's certainly true, and I'm sure pretty much everyone who's attending can attest to the fact that when a developer or an agency says something's going to take a certain amount of time, then you've got to be aware of the fact that life doesn't always work out the way the initial agreement stipulates. But that's all about... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Rob, I was going to say that often, and I've had some experience around these types of implementations in other businesses prior to Hairhouse Warehouse, and one thing I will say is that invariably I can't think of an individual, certainly not in my time, and I can't think of an individual I've spoken to who's overseen a project like this who has told me everything they needed was delivered and everything they could have possibly thought of was covered in their business requirements phase. The reality is, our business is huge and it's got a lot of moving parts and a lot of touch points across some really diverse areas, as I said, from sort of a standalone warehouse environment to salons in stores to click and collect functionality to tens of thousands of SKUs. I mean, there is a lot of moving parts, and there were certainly times where we believed through the business requirements definition phase that we'd covered everything we needed to. But when you see the first cut of the solution, you realise that something's missing, or it's not that something's missing, it's that we forgot to cover something, our teams have missed something as part of the business requirements phase, and therefore it hasn't been captured in the first cut of the solution. Now, to me, the testament to the relationship is what occurs and how was it dealt with when that occurs. And I have to say that the relationship with NetSuite has been one of really great collaboration. It's never been a situation of, oh well, you forgot to define that. If we build it in now, it's going to take X or cost X. With them, and with us as well, the focus has always been on the end game, and they've been very willing to work with us on recustomizing the solution, things that might have been missed or overlooked on the first run through.
Fantastic. And Rob, I think that leads us into another question for you, in fact, and it's another one from Stuart. He says, what are the exact terms? I guess you don't need to go through in the actual fine print kind of detail, but what kind of support arrangement does NetSuite have on the table with Hairhouse Warehouse currently?
Look, I can speak in general terms. I'm not familiar with the exact terms of support for Hairhouse Warehouse, but ongoing, we'll put our customers into support packages. We've got various different kinds, gold, silver, bronze type packages, that's there's the platform support, so the day-to-day stuff that you get through that sort of a support contract. And then look, there's, as Michael said in his last slide, that this is only just the beginning. So there may through the period be ongoing projects to extend out new functionality or to deploy into new geographic regions, and those will come down to being new projects, not handled by a support contract. But I'll probably push it over to Michael to elaborate exactly what support package they have and what they felt is necessary.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a hybrid, I guess. We have primarily, because of the unique nature of our business, we've chosen to resource up our internal ICT team to be first level support to our store network and to our support centre team from a NetSuite perspective. We do still have, as part of our implementation, we do still have a gold support package in place, which enables issues to be escalated through to the NetSuite support team as required. And, there's no doubt that will occur on many occasions once all of our stores are fully rolled out. But we've actually gone down the path. We've got a couple of our ICT team members who are working to become NetSuite certified. Certainly, those individuals and a number of individuals within our organisation have been through substantive training, product essentials training, and then specific training on different aspects of NetSuite to become champions of the application. Our view is, and this is just the path we take in terms of establishing an internal ICT infrastructure. Our view is that the relationships with our franchisees, which are cornerstone to the growth of our business, dictate that the unique nature of our business requires people on the ground at all times who are very familiar with the operations of our business and with the specific requirements of our store network. And whilst NetSuite provide a great level of support, our view was that level of support was probably never going to be in a position where they fully understood or needed to understand the unique mechanics of our store operation. So we've chosen to have our own team handle first level support.
Fantastic. Now there's, I think, time for one last question. We've got 3 minutes in it, so we'll use that time whilst we've got it. Marty, and I'm sure just like a number of our other attendees, he's specifically interested in the online channel, and I guess you could answer this question on many levels. He's asked in general, how is the online store faring in competition with other online stores, eBay presences and whatnot that probably compete with you on products. But I would ask the question as well from that other level of how does the online store not compete with your physical stores? How is that potential conflict resolved within your business? Can you talk to those things, Michael?
I can. Look, it's an excellent question. In choosing to have an online retail business, when first and foremost you're a franchise model and you're the franchisor, the initial fears around, from our network are around, is the franchisor going to start retailing at a discount level to the store network? We have not. I mean, there are plenty of online operators who just are around product and price. So we view our online presence and we structure our online presence around value, not necessarily around being the absolute cheapest in the market. So we obviously have an obligation to our store network not to be undercutting that therefore driving more traffic to our online business. But what we do is we look at actively driving traffic back into store for the benefit of our franchise network. So when someone purchases something online, for argument's sake, they will, and the offers are often different, but they will get a salon voucher for a discounted salon service which they can redeem in store. So we have sought the support of our franchise network by structuring our online offering, whilst people are going to continue obviously to buy product online, to save them coming into a store. We try and match it with a store-based offer, pushing people back into store. And also say that our online business, whilst it's owned and controlled by the franchisor, we have actually adopted a revenue sharing model with our franchise network that actually provides them with some flow through commercial benefit from whatever online sales that there are.
Well, that's fantastic, Michael, and I'm sorry to say we are out of time now, but thank you again, both Michael and Rob, for a fantastic presentation you've put together for us today. I'd also like to thank all of our attendees for coming along. We didn't actually get an email address up there, but you can contact NetSuite through their website if you have any further questions for them. If you have any, we do have a slide on that. Thanks for that, Michael. And there is the email address for NetSuite as well if you want to ask them anything directly. I'd also openly invite anyone to send me feedback directly. If you've got anything you'd like to say about our webinars or inquire about how we host them, more than happy to field questions there. Simply email me at campbell@mediapad.com.au. It's been great all, and I look forward to having you all again next time. Thank you.